Okay, then, moving swiftly on, the final item of business today is a members' business debate on motion number 7793 in the name of Linda-Fabiani on celebrating maxillofacial prosthetists and technologists. This debate will be concluded without any questions being put, and I invite those members who wish to speak in the debate to press the request to speak buttons now or as soon as possible. And if you are ready, Ms Fabiani, I'd be grateful if you would speak for 7 minutes or thereby, please.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer, and thank you to all of those who have attended the debate tonight and who signed the motion. Presiding Officer, until I read in my local paper, the East Kilbride News, about the achievement of East Kilbride resident Michael O'Neill, the term maxillofacial prosthetistry was not one which slipped easily from my tongue, and still doesn't, as you will see as the debate proceeds. And indeed it hadn't registered in my thoughts. So I did a bit of research and my interest was kindled. When I visited the West of Scotland Regional Maxillofacial Prosthetics Service at Glasgow's Southern General Hospital, I was absolutely fascinated to learn of the work that is carried out by 8 maxillofacial prosthetists who work between the Southern General and the Glasgow Royal Infirmary. The service is responsible for the provision of treatment for patients with a disfigurement of the head and neck region. This deformity can be trauma-related, congenital, or as a result of cancer surgery. And the work ranges from the need for simple surgical plates used to aid healing to recontouring of a patient's skull after trauma using a custom-fabricated titanium cranial implant. The laboratory runs prosthetic clinics and fabricates custom-made noses, ears, indwelling eyes and orbital prosthesis for patients who have lost part of their facial contour through trauma, cancer or congenital deformity. I am grateful to Michael O'Neill and Fraser Walker and their colleagues who provided an in-depth tour and presentation during my visit to the Southern General's MaxFax lab, which I've decided is much easier to say. I'm glad to welcome some of the team here this evening. The presentation detailed how far maxillofacial technology has come. From post-war prosthetics, for interest, these were generally attached to spectacles, for example. But now we have moved to new lifelike silicone prosthetics that can be attached through magnets or by fixing to bone. During the visit, Michael and Fraser demonstrated by showing personal cases where maxillofacial technology has been used to correct abnormalities in jaw or skull. It was clear, very clear to me, that this work is life-changing. Small or major enhancements to appearance that promote confidence and self-esteem and help to remove the stigma that so often unjustifiably applies to those who look different to what we deem to be normal. I was very much struck by the personal bond which there is between practitioner and client, built up sometimes over years. There is a closeness which is beyond, in many cases, that of general practitioner or dental practitioner, because the respect is given to clients and in return there is an absolute trust granted by client to practitioner. This caring relationship can be demonstrated by Michael's charity work to raise funds for related causes. I was also very much struck by the cutting-edge research and technology which is at the heart of this discipline, and that brings me to East Kilbride's own Michael O'Neill. Maxillofacial prosthetist Michael O'Neill from the Southern General Hospital scooped a prestigious award recently at an international conference. Michael received his Wim de Ruyter Deft Plate Award for pioneering a technique where you can enhance surgical results for patients who undergo jaw surgery operations. His technique involves pre-planning the operation on 3D models of the patient's skull, which has correctly proportioned teeth. The technique has been greatly successful in the correction of facial asymmetries and for difficult craniofacial operations. This allows work alongside head and neck cancer surgeons, pre-planning which can greatly cut down operation time. Using a CT scan, digital models can be created, allowing for careful planning of the patient's operation. Together with 3D physical models of the tumoured site, this allows the preparation of large bone plates with location clips, enabling accurate placement of bone grafts taken from another part of the patient's anatomy. This breakthrough has helped reduce operation time and made reconstructive bone grafting more accurate. I was very honoured to receive, and thank you, Presiding Officer, for allowing me to use a prop in this debate. I was very honoured to receive a miniature version of a skull which had been used for this technique. And I know that particularly the boys in the company will be fascinated that this was produced in a 3D printer. I have christened it Wee Mikey. And can I say that's in honour of Michael O'Neill rather than our own Minister Michael Matheson, just in case he takes that wrong. There is so much more I could say about this work, Presiding Officer, but time prohibits. As I know that many of my colleagues would be as fascinated as me by the work of the team in Scotland, I hope that when I arrange an information session in our Parliament in the new year, many will attend. Meanwhile, I would like to conclude by expressing some concerns that I have. For example, there is no specific training for maxillofacial prosthetists and technologists in Scotland. Presently, there are 14 qualified maxillofacial prosthetists in Scotland, and in 6 years' time, there will be a 25% reduction in this number due to retirement. The lack of training and discrepancies in pay structure makes it difficult to attract maxillofacial prosthetists and technologists to Scotland. Due to the low number of prosthetists required in Scotland, it may be that it's not practical to form an exclusively Scottish education programme. But imaginative thinking and recognition of this service, which is vital to so many and has such potential, as demonstrated by the work being carried out currently by Michael O'Neill, Fraser Walker and their colleagues, can surely reach a solution. I hope the Minister will consider these points, and I will write with much further detail. I would also suggest that the Minister consider visiting the unit and speaking directly to those who deliver the service, and perhaps some of those who receive it. I am sure he would find this as fascinating as I did. Thank you very much, Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much. I now call on James Dornan to be followed by Nanette Milne, 4 minutes or thereby, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I want to thank Linda-Fabiani for securing this debate, and would too like to welcome her guests from the field of maxillofacial prosthesis, as well as those who have benefited from their work, to Parliament, and hope that they have enjoyed the day so far and the debate that has just started to take place. It's clear that the work of maxillofacial prosthesis and technologists can be life-changing. They work to reconstruct the face after accident or disease, as Linda said. Those who work in the maxillofacial departments of hospitals across the country assist burns victims, cancer patients and many others who need treatment for the disfigurement of the head and neck region. And of course in Glasgow we know that there has very often been specific reasons for some of this treatment being required. The West of Scotland Regional Maxillofacial Prosthetic Service operates from 2 laboratories, one at the Southern General and the other at Glasgow Royal Infirmary, and it's responsible for a full range of highly specialist technical and prosthetic services to the West of Scotland and Forth Valley, as well as other referring authorities, both nationally and internationally. And I look forward to visiting the unit in the near future. And this department is internationally recognised, as Linda said, as well as the work of Michael O'Neill and his groundbreaking work with 3D printing that Linda very interestingly highlighted in her speech. Another of Michael's colleagues in the service was also presented with an award at the same conference in Inverness earlier this year. I'm delighted that George Payne from Glasgow Royal Infirmary is in the gallery today. George was presented with the Mount Vernon Prize, which recognises outstanding clinical practice, so I suspect John Mason thinks it's got something to do with him. George is currently the principal maxillofacial prosthesis based at the Royal Infirmary and provides a prosthesis service to a large number of plastic and ENT surgeons. This involves the fabrication of all forms of facial and body prosthesis, including burns therapy appliances. After almost 40 years working within the West of Scotland Maxillofacial Prosthesis Service, developing invaluable skills and expertise along the way, George can surely be presented as an example of outstanding excellence in his field. Presiding Officer, it's a testament to the strength of medical research in Scotland that practitioners in NHS Scotland are continually awarded for their research excellence and expertise across a wide variety of work within the NHS. I've been working recently with a local constituency group in support for ME sufferers in Glasgow under the NHS, and I've been struck by the practitioner research that has been coming out of that field. I hope that will be as useful to ME sufferers as Michael's research will be to those requiring maxillofacial prosthesis. This excellence is fostered through health research fellowships initiated by the Scottish Government in March 2011. These fellowships are intended to allow clinical staff to develop a research career alongside their clinical duties, and it does this by funding protected time for research activities. Some of the areas for study in these three-year fellowships include optimising treatment for patients with cardiac disease, improving outcomes for people with dementia, developing personalised medicine for women with ovarian cancer, and improving the management of children with inflammatory bowel disease. It is hoped that this scheme, which has its first fellows about halfway through the first three-year placement, will continue to encourage a culture within the NHS which recognises research as a vital and important part of healthcare, which undoubtedly contributes to the improvements in patient care. Presiding Officer, it's great to be able to speak in a debate which helps to highlight just how much research talent that Scotland has to offer across such a wide variety of skills and sectors. Particularly in a field such as this, which can make such a huge difference to the lives of those whom they treat. Long may it continue, and I hope that Michael and George continue their groundbreaking work for many years to come. Thank you.
Many thanks. Now calling Annette Milne to be followed by Bob Doris.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Although I too add my congratulations to Linda-Fabiani for initiating this debate, I suspect we are discussing an area where most of us had to do some research prior to the debate. I would start by saying that despite my medical background, this field of expertise is not something I'm particularly familiar with. Indeed, as the result of modern technology, it's achieving outcomes which would have been unbelievable when I first came across the specialty as a medical student and young doctor. We've all read in newspapers of individuals who've suffered horrendous facial injuries sustained, for example, in car accidents, where the previous assumption would have been that the individual involved would simply have to accept their fate and, to put it bluntly, get on with life. However, advances in this field of surgery and the collaboration of a multidisciplinary team of experts mean that a person is no longer forced to endure the rest of his or her existence with life-changing facial scars or other disfigurements as the result of an accident, congenital defect or cancer surgery. The number of stories has increased of individuals who have lost features such as a nose or an eye, undergoing skilled and painstaking surgery to give them realistically fabricated replacements, allowing them to re-enter society more confidently and helping them to overcome the psychological traumas of their experiences. This area of medical science and technology has been one of the great success stories of our time, although the history of prosthesis in general stretches back to ancient Egyptian, Greek and Roman civilizations. However, it wasn't until the last century when prosthetics as a recognised medical field came of age. Indeed, the First World War saw a huge increase in the demand for prosthetics, no longer the preserve of just the wealthy, but necessitated by the introduction of industrialised weaponry such as machine guns, which left many men horrifically scarred. Maxillofacial prosthetics is part of that growing branch of surgery which deals with disfigurement of the head and neck region, and which, whilst not life-saving, can totally transform the lives of those afflicted by it, giving them the confidence to mix with other people and get back to a more normal life. One person who always comes to my mind when thinking about transformation after maxillofacial trauma is Army veteran Simon Weston, who was so badly burned and disfigured in the Falklands War, and who now does so much by his charitable efforts to help other people who've experienced similar traumatic events. In reading for this debate, I was particularly struck by the very moving story of a 16-year-old American girl who was accidentally blasted in the face by drunken friends playing with a stolen shotgun. Although miraculously she survived, she was left blind and horrifically disfigured. This brave young lady went on to marry and had a baby boy 11 years after the accident. But fear of frightening her child by her appearance led her to wear a face mask at all times to cover the gaping hole where her eyes and nose once were. Her life has now changed after undergoing pioneering maxillofacial surgery, which prepared her remaining bone structure to allow a prosthetic face, designed on photographs taken before the accident with features aged to reflect the passage of time, to be snapped on and off. Although she'll never again be able to see and has forever lost any sense of smell, the maxillofacial surgeon has given this individual the confidence to show her son her new face. The example I give, Presiding Officer, is an extreme case, but the key word I would highlight is that of confidence, and the gaining of confidence extends to all people who feel renewed by maxillofacial surgery, such as those born with cleft palate, those who need jaw realignment, or those who are deformed by cancer surgery or trauma. The motion rightly pays tribute to the many prosthetists and technologists who work in this field, and in particular Michael O'Neill from East Kilbride, who pioneered a technique, as we've heard, to enhance the surgical results for patients undergoing jaw surgery, which led to him winning the Wim de Ruyter Delft Plate Award. I'm happy to add my personal congratulations to Mr O'Neill on this magnificent achievement, and I would once again extend my thanks to Linda-Fabiani for this evening's debate. Thank you.
Many thanks. Now call on Bob Doris to be followed by Rhoda Grant.
Presiding Officer, thank you very much. Can I also thank Linda-Fabiani for bringing this evening's debate to the Chamber. And as others have done, can I put on record my congratulations to Michael O'Neill in winning the Wim de Ruyter Delft Plate Award from the Institute of Maxillofacial Prosthetists. I thought I knew how to say that, but every single member said it differently each time, which has somewhat undermined my confidence, I have to say. And I think I'll use the word confidence again when we talk more about this. So congratulations to Michael, but also the wider team at the Southern General and the GRI. Clearly, Michael's won that award, but there are a variety of experts within the department who are excelling in this field. There was a number of reasons I wanted to speak in this debate. One is because as a Glasgow member of the Scottish Parliament, I want to recognise and acknowledge the very best practice and world-leading practice that is clearly evident there. But I'm also Deputy Convener of the Health and Sport Committee, and it's an area that I'm interested in to find out more about. So perhaps with my Glasgow colleague James Dornan and hopefully the Minister, we can go along and see in action the good work that takes place at the Southern. But I also had a personal reason that I'd actually forgotten about for speaking in this afternoon's debate, and it's about something that happened around 20 years ago as a daft laddie in Dundee, where I took a tumble. And yes, I was questioning my relationship with alcohol that particular day, but I took a tumble nevertheless, and I was left with a fairly dramatic hole in my chin. And as I was regaining consciousness, the doctors who were attending to me were debating about whether or not they should try to reconstruct the hole in my chin, or whether they should put it to the plastic specialist that was there in Dundee. Fortunately for me, they put it to the plastic specialist that was there in Dundee, and the difference that made to the scar that I would be left with in my chin was quite dramatic, and it is now pretty minimal indeed. But Nanette mentioned confidence, and if such a trivial event, and I'm not comparing myself to some of the more dramatic life-changing events that others have said, but if such a trivial event meant that for a year or so afterwards I had a small beard because I was embarrassed about my scar and it undermined my personal self-confidence, if something as trivial as that can undermine a young man's self-confidence, I can only imagine what, the impact that having full facial reconstruction can do. So yes, we have to look at the major technological advances, but there's little minor miracles that are performed every day of the week, and we shouldn't forget that either. For myself, as a young man making my way in the world, it made a huge difference to my quality of life, and I have no idea who that plastics surgeon was at the time, but I'd like to thank them greatly, because it made a difference to my life. I also wanted to say the words of a colleague that I've got in Glasgow. He doesn't work in Glasgow. His name's Ken Andrew. He is involved in prosthetics, but it's not facial prosthetics, it's arms and limbs. And I said, could you tell me, what have you heard of maxillofacial prosthetists? And I got that wrong again, Presiding Officer, never mind. And he dropped me an email before this afternoon's debate, and he mentioned the high expertise and the advances there have been, but he also said a couple of things which I thought were particularly powerful. He said the impact these experts have on the improved well-being of individuals that have suffered devastating injury through trauma and disease is almost unimaginable. and they said Max Fax technicians are true artisans with the very best of them possessing genuine artistic talent. So not just the high-end stuff, but the very minor attention to detail that these experts provide. I'm now over my time, Presiding Officer. Thank you for your patience in listening, but more all, other than thanking Linda-Fabiani for bringing this to the Chamber, can I thank Michael O'Neill and his team at the Southern and the GRI for all the work they do. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. Now call on Rhoda Grant, after which we'll move to the Minister for the closing speech.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I too congratulate Linda-Fabiani for securing the debate, and also add my congratulations to Michael O'Neill for winning the award that's very much the subject of this debate. And it's really important that we in Scotland nurture and develop our talent, and we often lead the way within the UK for research. And that really very often means that we attract a greater share of research funding than our population would indicate. And I think that's down to the talents of people such as Michael O'Neill, who go ahead blazing a trail and winning awards, and the many other researchers who do likewise in Scotland. So I think this debate is about them as well. We often underestimate the importance of facial reconstruction, seeing it as something that's done for aesthetic purposes, really, rather than medical imperatives. And that point of view underestimates the impact that a change to our face can have on us, both mentally and physically. And I think Bob Dorr has very eloquently put forward his own experience of having something what he considered relatively minor and the impact it had on him. It's very hard then for us to imagine waking up in the morning, looking in the mirror, and the face that looks back to you is not one that you recognise as your own. That must have a huge impact on people, an impact on your sense of self, as well as on your mental health. I remember the point when facial transplants was being pioneered, and there was a lot of news coverage about it. And that news coverage talked about the amount of counselling that a transplant recipient would require, much more than if you were getting a heart or any other organ. And that's because how we look is so much part of us. We don't see a heart or a kidney, but we do see our own face, and that tells us who we are. So we need to fully appreciate the importance of how we look to our sense of self. Neither do we fully appreciate how we use our face to communicate with others, not just speaking as we are here tonight, but that can be affected by injuries around the mouth, breakages of bones, and indeed cancer treatment. But it's also about the non-spoken communication that we use our face for, and that can be absolutely lost if we require a lot of surgery. Changes to the structure of our face can also stop us from eating, and that impacts on the rest of our body and our nutritional intake. And while that can be overcome by tube feeding and the like, it doesn't take into account the pleasure of eating, the pleasure of taste, and how important that is to us. The ability to reconstruct a face because of an accident or disease can give somebody back that sense of themselves, as well as their ability to communicate and the ability to enjoy the senses that we all take for granted. Therefore, I'm really pleased to support this debate, because it brings to the attention of the Parliament these issues and pays tribute to the people who carry out this work. And then hopefully it will raise awareness of the profession so that more people will be willing to get involved and maybe fill the skills gap that Linda-Fabiani was talking about.
Many thanks. I now call on the Minister to wind up the debate on behalf of the Government. 7 minutes or thereby, Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I, like others, begin by offering my congratulations to Linda-Fabiani in securing time for this debate, and also to offer my personal congratulations to Michael O'Neill for his award in pioneering a technique which will enhance surgical results for patients who have undergone jaw surgery, and to say that I'm more than happy to take up Linda-Fabiani's suggestion of visiting the service to learn more about the important work that they undertake. Michael's award is a recognition of the important work that's being done in this developing field of maxillofacial prosthetics, and in particular in the west of Scotland, regional maxillofacial prosthetic service. I'm sure Michael would recognise that, having offered my congratulations to him, it's also appropriate that I should offer my congratulations to George Payne, as James Donnan did, for the work that he's undertaken at Glasgow Royal Infirmary, having received the Mount Vernon Award for outstanding clinical or technical practice. I think both of these awards reflect the importance of the specific research of certain individuals, but also the wider pioneering work in this particular field, which is taking place within NHS Scotland, for which we are very grateful and we are also very proud of. The West of Scotland Regional Maxillofacial Prosthetic Service is responsible for the provision of treatment of patients with disfigurement of the head and neck region. There is a wide variety of work now being carried out within this particular service, from surgical plates used to aid healing to the recontouring of a patient's skull after trauma. And as Linda-Fabiani mentioned in her contribution, the laboratories run prosthetics clinics, and they also fabricate custom-made noses, ears, indwelling eyes and orbital prosthesis for patients who have lost part of their facial contour through trauma, cancer or congenital deformity. The field of maxillofacial prosthetics and technology has seen some significant developments taking place within a fairly short period of time. We are seeing increasingly sophisticated technology such as 3D modelling to accurately model and construct prosthetic replacements for mouth, jaw and facial reconstructive surgery. In Michael's research he undertook as part of his master's degree, he received the award for pioneering a technique where you can enhance surgical results for patients who undergo jaw surgery operations. His technique involves pre-planning the operation on 3D models of the patient's skull, which has correctly proportioned teeth. The particular technique involves taking a direct impression of the patient's dentition, casting it in dental plaster, then replacing the inaccurate dentition of the 3D skull model with the accurate plaster dentition taken from the patient. This particular technique is an excellent example where technology can have a positive impact on patient care and the outcomes for the patient. And as Linda-Fabiani highlighted, it's also aided in reducing the operation time and made reconstructive bone grafting much more accurate. I want to, though, touch as well, Presiding Officer, briefly on restorative benefits of this type of research, as it offers a significant level of benefit to patients who have lost part of their facial contour through trauma, cancer and congenital deformity. This is likely to have a very serious impact on someone's self-esteem and ability, as several members have made reference to, and it can have an impact on their potential to be able to fulfil their life as fully within our society. Reconstructive surgery brings enormous benefits in improving a person's outlook and self-confidence. Technology, as described in the motion that's been brought before the Parliament by Linda-Fabiani, enhances treatment and it also improves the outcome for patients. And it's right that we should properly recognise this in Parliament. Presiding Officer, I also want to highlight some of the wider issues around oral cancer, because this motion gives me an opportunity to highlight some of the issues around oral cancer here in Scotland. Although cancer of the mouth are relatively rare, there are still more than 400 people diagnosed in Scotland each year. It is also more common in men, although rates amongst women are actually on the rise. While the exact causes are unknown, risk factors are smoking and excessive consumption of alcohol. And a study in 2011 estimated that more than half of mouth and throat cancers in the UK are associated and caused by smoking. So it's important we keep these measures in mind when we are looking at preventative approaches to dealing with these types of issues. I also want to reflect briefly on the role of NHS dental services in prevention of oral cancer. Dental teams are unique in a unique position to help detect oral cancer at its early stages when we know it's easier to treat and outlook is better for the patient. Early diagnosis and treatment can increase a patient's chances of survival from below 50% to that of 90%. And as well as having free NHS dental examinations, I can also report that registration rates amongst adults in Scotland are now at their highest level. As at September 2013, a total of 81.6% of adults are now registered with an NHS dentist in Scotland. The equivalent figure in September 2007 was 48.6%. Presiding Officer, finally, I want to return to the motion and the need for the Scottish Parliament to recognise this important work in maxillofacial prosthetics. While prevention has a role with respect to oral cancer, unfortunately there will always be a need for this particular type of treatment. That's why it's important that we encourage development in this important field. It's a field with an exciting future where technology and research, as we've heard today, can make a real difference to the quality of people's lives. Advances such as the ones we've heard here this evening, I believe, represent hope for patients in the who are in need of reconstructive surgery of the mouth, jaw or face. Presiding Officer, I have got no doubt that members will be inspired by the work that has been undertaken by Michael O'Neill and his colleagues, and will recognise that this demonstrates the very significant advances which have been made in this area of technology here in Scotland.
Many thanks, and thank you all for your contributions tonight. And I now close this meeting of Parliament.